When I was 22 years old, I had an experience that a lot of women will recognize. I had been promised a job for the next year, all hired and set to go. And then when they realized that I was pregnant, the job was given to someone else. Now, this was a long time ago, but we know this kind of stuff still happens today. Sometimes subtly and frankly, sometimes not so subtly. So I get out and on the campaign trail, I tell my story. And I've asked other people to tell their stories as well. I think that's a good way to fight back. And here are some of the stories I've heard. Hell, I'm young, and I personally know 2 women who faced workplace discrimination because they were pregnant. I can't imagine 30 years ago. It happens. Believe women when they tell you. You're right, CC. And here's one from Emilia. I was fired the day after notifying of my pregnancy, and I was told it was because, quote, I wasn't likable enough. I got a lawyer and a settlement. Good for you. Interviewing in the 3rd trimester is an experience I wouldn't recommend, albeit necessary for many. Here's one from Cathy. My mother hid her pregnancy with me in 1964 for as long as she could until it was too obvious, and then they fired her. Pretty standard practice. And here's one from JCBC. In the early 2000s, I was non-tenured faculty, was offered a contract for a year after pregnancy, asked for reduced workload in order to care for infant and was told no, asked for a year of unpaid leave instead and was granted that, but was not offered a contract for the following year. Yeah. From EJ. This happened to me in 2016 when I was 4.5 months and very openly pregnant. If you don't believe it could happen to a first-time teacher in 1971, 7 years before the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, then I have a bridge to sell you. Yep. And here's another. This one from Sarah. My mom was demoted and then fired from her job when she was pregnant with my sis and me. We're twins. She retold us that story recently, and let me tell you, 30 plus years later, the pain and anger from that experience was still very raw and real. Women don't share this stuff willy-nilly. So true, Sarah. Here's another one from Lady T. Thank you. My mom had to, quote, quit, close quote, her teaching position each time she became visibly pregnant because it was official policy back then. The 1974 Supreme Court ruling said these policies were an undue burden on women teachers. Oh, here's one from Summer. My dudes, women are still fired or not hired at all, basically for just looking like they might one day soon want to become pregnant. Someone at the UN once told me to my face this was why I didn't get a job. I was then single, and 10 years later, I still have no kids. I got it, Summer. When I got pregnant for the first time, I was excited and told everyone at work. And a few weeks later, I got a surprise, forcible lateral transfer to a less prominent department. I'd miscarried that week, and in the trauma, I didn't make the connection. It dawned on me later. My mother had to threaten to sue to keep her job when she was pregnant with me. Her colleagues made a big stink about her asking for maternity leave a second time. I was her second kid. That was 1989. Things haven't improved much for pregnancy discrimination since. Nadine says, 1997 too. I was pregnant. They knew they couldn't fire me, but my boss, a woman, made every day a living hell to try to make me quit. There was not a day she didn't humiliate me, undermine my position at work. I'm so sorry, Nadine. Oh, we've got so much more, but for now I'm going to quit, but please keep sending your stories in. It's important to tell these stories. This is how we make real change. We do it together.